Silence is a power. Power is silence. When you don't say much, people respect your words.
In smoky rooms where deals are made, loyalty the ace he's played. A friend of ours, he'll stand up tall. Through gunfire smoke, he'll never fall. With heart of gold and steel resolve, a mystery we'll never solve.
Brothers and sisters, welcome back. Welcome back to the Friend of Ours podcast. This is a limited edition series hosted by your main man, Duke Loves Wrestling. And of course, the legend, the real deal, a man that legitimately is not only beloved, but he's also feared. The one, the only, the Don, Big Vito Lagrasso. How's it going there, Vito?
I'm doing fine, Duke. I hope you're doing well. I hope all of our listeners are doing great. Thank you for watching and listening and, continuing to, be a part of our limited edition series. Duke, I know it's a Sunday and we're here on a beautiful afternoon where you're freezing and I'm dealing with a little raindrops before I go in the jacuzzi. But that's how we do here in Florida on the golf course, living that kind of lifestyle. Duke, what are you doing today?
Well, I'm waiting for the snow. Let's put it like that, okay? We're supposed to be getting hit with, we got weather advisories and all this stuff here. It was slippery outside, so much black ice because of the moisture, and I guess they hadn't treated the roads yet in wonderful Boston, Massachusetts. So while this guy over here is in his hot tubs, he's got his hot wife, he's got, sunny days, even when the rain comes, he's still got sunny days. I'm over here dealing with the real weather. All right. You abandoned us here up north to go hang out down in Florida like all these wise guys do. And I'm telling you, I still got a problem with that, Vito.
There's nothing to have a problem with, Duke. It's a lifestyle. It's a change. It's something you want to live with or you don't want to live with. I've decided to move out of Staten Island in 2006, and I said I wanted jacuzzis, hot ladies, palm trees, pina coladas, and late nights boating. I mean, that was the lifestyle I went, along with go to all the clubs and, going to Baskin Robbins to, have my delight of all 32 flavors time two.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You're going to start this thing again. Okay, we're going to sidestep the Baskin Robbins unless Baskin Robbins wants to be a sponsor here on the Friend of Ours podcast, because Vito clearly is a big fan of yours. So, you know how to reach out. We can make that happen. I'm reminded of this scene in the Irishman. I don't know if you remember The Irishman. Both De Niro
Yes.
and Al Pacino was in there. Wait a second. Yeah, Pacino and Joe Pesci was in there as well. But remember the scene where they're in the restaurant and, and Pacino goes, you come to a meeting, you're not even wearing a suit. And the other guy goes, "What am I wearing a suit down in Florida, 90-degree weather? What the hell? What do you mean wear a suit?" He said, "Well, it's a meeting. You're supposed to come dressed up." He's like, "Come dressed up in this kind of weather." This is what it reminds me of when I hear you talk about the weather down there. You're probably in your little Hawaiian shirt, your linen pants, and your flip-flops, and I'm over here all bundled up. I got on 5 layers trying to stay warm. I'm telling you, you're something else, brother.
Hey, listen, Duke, you make a good point. How do you come to a business meeting? Now, being me, I am old fashioned. You go to a meeting, you're in a suit, no matter where you are. So I can understand Robert De Niro. And when I seen the other guy coming in that, "Hey, how you doing? We're here in Florida. You come in your shorts, you're looking good. Your chest hair out, gold chains, having, a cup of your favorite, a cigar in your mouth, and you're over there acting like, a wise guy with your fancy sunglasses on. I mean, there's a different contrast from up north in Florida meetings. That's for sure.
It's a different contrast. That's a polite way of saying it for sure. It's a different contrast. My goodness, you know. But hey, it's different philosophies, man. You know, and it all makes the world go round. Speaking of which, there's a new movie that I was pleasantly surprised to see a clip of. I didn't even know that this thing was going to be coming out, but your lovely wife sent me a clip of it. Talk to me about this new Wise Guy movie that should be coming out soon, where De Niro is playing not one but two famous characters from the underworld, so to speak. Did you get a chance to check out the clip?
I did get a chance to check out the clip. It's going to be a fascinating movie. And I believe the underworld is going to be featured in this movie with people like Lucky Luciano and other great people. And I think it's going to be something of a blockbuster and eye opening concept, and a concept that's been brewing for a while, where we have these great um, programs on TV like Boardwalk Empire. We have The Sopranos. We have these great movies like, Gotti. We have Mob Wives. Then we have this new movie coming out, which is a hitch off The Irishman. And now you're going to be talking about another mafia lifestyle that's going to be portrayed where, you know what? I might even have a chance to be in it.
Huh, look at that. Look at that. I love that. You know, Alto Knights. The Alto Knights is the name of the movie, folks. It's an upcoming American biographical crime drama directed by Barry Levinson, and it stars Robert De Niro as two people. So he's playing Vito Genovese, and he's playing Frank Costello, and the movie takes place in the 1950s. So it's pretty crazy, the whole situation there. I definitely encourage everybody, go online, go to YouTube or what have you, check out the extended cut of their trailer. It is incredible, completely incredible. This would probably be the biggest movie of the year. It's probably going to, sweep the Oscars and the whole nine yards there. De Niro playing two separate major figures in mafia history there. What could go wrong? Nothing. It's going to be amazing. So can't wait to see that. And hey, if you make a cameo in that movie, that'll be even better.
It's something like when you talk about great actors and how they portray people, sometimes I think Robert De Niro is underrated in what he can accomplish. Because when you look at the mob movies and everything he's done, um, you really have to give him credit for being that character, for him analyzing what the movie's about, for him to be in that presence and that mindset, and for him to take on the characteristics of the character is definitely a tribute to his abilities as an actor to bring real life credibility to the movie, which I'm a big fan of.
Same, absolutely. I'm with you on that. You know what I really like about De Niro is in some of these movies, whether it be Goodfellas or Casino, he's not playing an Italian in those movies. These are mob movies that are based on the Italian mafia, yet De Niro is always playing somebody who, or at least in those instances, he's playing somebody who can't get in. He can't be made because he's technically not Italian, which is interesting because Robert De Niro absolutely is Italian in real life. And he did a great job playing, uh, uh, Vito Corleone in The Godfather. So, or at least in part two, where he played a young Vito. So it's
Right.
really interesting his range, De Niro. He can legitimately do it all, and the fact that at this point in his life, he's still cranking out blockbuster movies. Now he's doing double duty. He's playing two separate people. Oh my God, the guy's amazing. He's amazing.
Well, Duke, it's I think when he's put in that position to portray somebody who's not really Italian, I think from everybody who's watching these movies, it brings a lot of authenticity to the fact that an Irish person can be Italian and have Italian tributes to his character to be able to be included in a mafia family. I know that's a lot what I said. It's very educated what I said, but when you look at the characters he has portrayed as like, Goodfellas, he can never be made because he's never full-blooded Italian, but he accepts the Italian heritage as his own and portrays it better than some of the guys who are 100% full Italian heritage. Duke, I think you can get on the train with that one because it is true.
No, it's 100% true. 100% true. And I think it takes a guy like that who is of the culture to understand how to be adjacent to the culture. He'll never be it in these roles because he's not full-blooded Italian, but he's still adjacent to the culture. He's still part of it. He could still be part of somebody's crew. He just can't be a made guy. And that's difficult. That's difficult to play something that's not really you. You know what I mean? And the fact that he's excelled and made those characters so special, it really is something. I'll tell you. I tip my hat to De Niro. Obviously, we love the De Niro, Pacino. It reminds me of the old who's better, Hogan or Flair, or who's better, the Cowboys or the 49ers or what have you. It reminds me of those types of debates. People feeling like they have to pick a side, whether it be De Niro or Pacino. I don't pick a side. I love both of those guys. I grew up on both of those guys. I think they're fantastic at everything that they've done. What about you, Vito? Do you pick a side when it comes to De Niro, Pacino? Do you have a favorite, or are you like me?
No, I'm definitely like you, but you know what? When it came time for them to go head to head, I think a lot of people were happy that it happened, but the suspense of who was going to catch who. Was De Niro going to catch Pacino, or was Pacino going to catch De Niro? And I know that the outcome was great because it was a dogfight until the end, but the mutual respect they had for each other at the end, they both raised their hands in victory because they were both gangsters, good and bad, but it was just one guy was just one step ahead.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I wonder, are you making more reference to the movie Heat? Or are you talking more of The Irishman? Which movie are you talking about in particular?
In the movie Heat, because I think that's where you saw two great masterminds. I wouldn't say in their prime, but prime experience. Note that, people, prime experience, because you could be in your prime, but you don't have the experience. But then you can have prime experience where you use your mind to outduel somebody else's great mind. And when it came to time for them guys to tackle each other's wit, you did sit there with suspense and you did sit there saying, hey, this is great. I'm going to watch this all the way through.
Yeah, folks, and for any of our listeners out there who may be unfamiliar, I'm not going to assume that everybody knows everything that we're talking about. This is an educational podcast in its own right as well. The movie Heat is based on a true story, and it's about a police detective who was played by Al Pacino, who is on the hunt to finally take down this big criminal mastermind, and that was played by De Niro. And ironically, again, this is all based on a true story. Those two characters, those two people really existed in real life, and they really faced off with each other and butted heads and what have you. So, to have those two legends act opposite of each other that way, fantastic. We were blessed with riches when that happened, for sure. But again, the Alto Knights, Keep an eye out. I think the official movie will drop late March. Keep your fingers crossed that it sticks to that. I can't wait to see it. It'll be fun there. Speaking of fun, I got to tell you, Vito, we've been talking about your family lineage and some of your ancestors. We have done a lot and had a lot of discussion about Lucky Luciano and the fact that he absolutely is somebody who is in your family tree. And I know that some people are like, come on, is that real or is Vito just blowing smoke? I mean, come on, that couldn't be true, whatever. And it's okay for people to trust but verify and to question things. There's nothing wrong with critical thinking. But I was pleasantly surprised, and I didn't even ask for this, but I was pleasantly surprised when your wife sent me the naturalization paperwork from your great grandfather, Joe. And on the paperwork, it's witnessed by two people who are listed as barbers. Now, one person is Bartolo Luciano, and
Right.
the other guy is Salvatore Luciano. Well, folks, Salvatore Luciano is Charles Lucky Luciano, and Bartolo is his brother, which means that their other brother is Joe, who just so happens to be Vito's great grandfather. This is an official document. I have seen it. I actually have a copy of it, digital copy of it. It's fantastic. And this is public record. So this is something that anybody can go and research and pull up and what have you from the archives, U.S. Department of Labor. But it is the naturalization paperwork of Vito's great grandfather. So Giuseppe Luciano is his name, and everyone called him Joe. So Vito, I guess this puts it to bed, man. You haven't been blowing smoke. You haven't been BSing at all. This is the truth that you're related to Lucky Luciano.
It does, and it's something that has been researched, has been documented, has been on ancestry, it has been indulged in family tree, something that has been shared with Duke, one of my closest friends, and this is something that is legitimate. And when you think about the history of Lucky Luciano and how far back it goes, you're talking about um, American history. You're talking about a culture that was very strong. You're talking about something that was sacred. And you're talking about a heritage that took care of theirs. Now, when you've seen the document, Duke, you've seen that Lucky Luciano and Bartolo signed this paper. And those are the guys that kept bringing their family here because they earned the right or the power to do so in America. Now, Duke, I know you're a better reader of documents than I am, and you understand this, and I have been reading as long as you have. But I think what the people want to hear in your words, because you can better present it than me, is what that meant to the culture of people back then on an official government business level.
Well, in order for you to be a witness to bring somebody into the country, and to be allowed to sign off saying that yes, I attest that this person is who they say they are, and it's almost like you're letting the nation know that you're responsible for them. That's the best way that I can sum that up. So the fact that two people are saying, hey, this is our brother, and we're signing off that that's our brother, and his name is Giuseppe. He is who we say he is, and we take responsibility for that. You have to be somebody. You have to already have been here. You had to have already become a citizen and what have you in order for that to even make sense, in order for that to be an official thing. So these guys had already established themselves. They were already in the country, what have you. Then they bring your great grandfather over, put their stamp of approval on him. The country says, okay, fine. You say you guys are barbers. You know that's your brother. Fine, it's all done. There we go. Um, and the rest is history. We don't get Big Vito LaGrasso without this happening. And this is the immigrant story, and it goes beyond just Italian immigrants. My Jamaican immigrant family has a similar story where my grandmother came here first, and then one by one, she did what she had to do in order to bring over, legally, by the way, each of her children who wanted to come to the United States, who wanted to leave Jamaica and start a new life here in a new country, including my mother. And that's what she did. And you're nothing without family, especially if family is available. You go into a new world, a new country, and you got to deal with learning how to do everything, learning new customs, learning new ways of life, and what have you. You kind of want to have somebody there with you who you trust, who can have your back, and what have you. And you're not going to find that easily outside of family. Family is who you're supposed to depend on when the going gets tough in the end. So every immigrant, I don't care what culture you're from. I don't care if you're Chinese. I don't care if you're Italian. I don't care if you're Jamaican. I don't care if you're Russian. We all share a similar story in something like this. So to see this document, Vito, and to hear your life story and to hear you talk about things that have happened in your family in the past and what have you, and to talk about Lucky, it just brings it all full circle. And it's so interesting and it's so cool because that in and of itself is the American story. You know, you've gone on to become such a successful figure in sports and entertainment and what have you, now in podcasting. These guys laid the groundwork, and that's what this document is showing to set you up all these years later to be the man that you are. So it's fascinating and it's really really cool there. When did you find out, like, if you can remember, when did you find out that you were related to Lucky Luciano? How old were you around when you found out, and how were you told?
I believe this was hidden from me as a kid. And I know we've said this, we've gone on with this, but the first time I met him was at his funeral. My mother didn't tell me that I had a grandfather other than the gentleman who was, my step grandfather. My mother told me I had to go to a funeral. I said, whose? She said, it's my father's. And I looked at her. So I really didn't ask much. But when I went to this family's funeral, there were so many people who embraced my mother and embraced me as part of the family. And I think for my mother being separated from him, I think it was a bittersweet thing, maybe partly because of her protection for her. Could have been a um, a way for her, maybe not as much her, but her mother getting away from that side of the family. And it was a thing because my mother stayed close to my uncle Joe Lucania, who was related to Lucky. And Lucania was really Luciano, but the O became an A. And that's how I knew all these years later that, the pieces fit together. And then when I did the family tree and I started to ask questions about my family heritage, that's when I got to know who I truly was related to and who I was. And I got to tell you guys, and I swear this is not a BS story, and this is not something made up. But when I watch Boardwalk Empire and I see Lucky Luciano, the way he flies off the handle, he is 100% Vito LaGrasso. And then when I see pictures of my uncle and we stand side by side in pictures. I'm the spitting image of him, and that's kind of scary. But for the characteristics of being a young entrepreneur, making it from nothing to something like Lucky Luciano, to be famous not only in a entrepreneur lifestyle, but helping the United States of America. And then for myself, starting out from really behind the eight ball, nothing, and making it to being a pro athlete, that says something about the genetics, the well being, and the tenacity of what's inside your mind, inside your heart. And you can't duplicate hard. If you want something, you'll go get it. And I look at that every day and I say, wow, this is really something. If I only knew back then. But then again, I might not be podcasting here today. I mean, Duke, I mean, you can attest to that. You know me about 10 years now, and you know my life, you know my story. And they say, well, if Lucky Luciano wrote a book, Vito Lagrassos could definitely write a book. And I bet you the top Lucky Lucianos, because I got a lot of good stories.
I don't know if it would top Lucky Luciano's, but it sure would rival it because you've been around the world and had so many different experiences. The whole concept of being born into that life, and yet when you were at the fork in the road, choosing to go the straight and narrow, that in and of itself is a hell of a story to tell because your life
Well,
was already mapped out one way and you chose to go a different way, you know?
Duke, my life was heading in that direction. And it's funny. My uncle hated Brooklyn for so many reasons when you struggle. And I hated Brooklyn because there were a lot of bad things I don't want to remember. And when you get out of some place that you struggle, you never go back. I never go back to Brooklyn. Lucky Luciano never went back to Brooklyn. And the the comparisons between him and I are remarkable because, like, when you look at his characteristics and what he is and what kind of man he was, it's like you made a duplicate copy, and it's scary, but in a lot of ways, it's a lot of good things because society has changed, the way you look at people has changed, but you can't duplicate heart. And heart is something that's built inside you. You either got it or you don't. And I think you can attest to that.
100%. 100%. So again, folks, for anyone who has any doubt or any question, now this is a real thing and he can prove it. So Vito Lagrasso absolutely is related to Lucky Luciano. And for all you movie producers and writers and television producers and what have you, if you're looking to do a project about Lucky, especially, Lucky when he's at this stage of his life, when he, from 40 years old on, I think you need to get in touch with Vito. He looks like the guy. He has the same mannerisms of the guy. It's the same blood pumping through his veins there. I think you should get in touch with Vito. It would be very interesting to have Vito play a middle aged Lucky Luciano, especially at that stage in his life where he's getting deported and he's still got to run things, but now from Italy and what have you. There's a lot. His business dealings with the United States government and how they needed him and how important he was to national security. There's a lot going on with that storytelling that we really have not seen in cinema or in television to the degree that it should be, because it is a fascinating story to tell. And Vito, you already got your actor here. You already got the guy who could fill that role and do it authentically. So I'm throwing that out there. I know that there's a lot of different types of folks have all different types of jobs. I know there's some movie people who listen to this podcast. You need to reach out to Vito. I think that there's some business to be had there, and I'll leave it at that. Um, Speaking of business to be had, one of the things that keeps popping up when you and I are having these episodes, which are just fantastic. We're getting a great response. I love it. Appreciate all you folks out there listening. Inadvertently, Vito, you kind of steered us in the direction of talking about mob wives because you
Right.
actually are personally familiar with. You actually knew some of the folks, especially God rest her soul, Big Ange, and it got me to thinking because I mean, listen, we're up on the ninth anniversary of Big Ange passing away. She battled multiple bouts of cancer, unfortunately, just kept coming at her. She was kicking its ass one way, then it would come back a different way, then it'd come back a different way. Tough young lady there, no two ways about it. But I want to take a different approach to this because I really want our listeners to be able to follow along. Mob Wives is a television show that was on VH1. It's still available out there, folks. You can even go on YouTube and find it, but I'm sure Paramount Plus or what have you, you can find ways to watch the shows, previous episodes there. Um, Vito, you were a big fan of the show because you actually knew the folks involved, and you have
Right.
a perspective because you knew Ange that you wanted to share. And I said, you know what? Let's do it, brother. Let's do it. It's a great idea. So hit me with it. What's this perspective about Big Ange that a lot of people didn't necessarily realize or maybe weren't able to pick up on from the show? Because she wasn't just this lady with the raspy voice and the big boobs. She wasn't just this fabulous bar owner and what have you. She played a more serious and significant role um, as well in the lives of just about everybody involved in that show and even outside, what have you. So hit us with it, Vito. What's the real story about Big Ange that a lot of people may not realize?
So when you talk about Ange, I want to first say you talk about a lady who was a business person, a lady who was a beautiful soul. She had a heart of gold. Like everybody else in their personal lives, everybody goes through their own personal stuff. She went through stuff with her own relationships. She went through stuff with her own children. She went through stuff with her own businesses. The one thing that has been missing for Ange is that she's the unofficial women's consigliere of mob wives. When you talk about mob wives and you talk about somebody who was seasoned, well spoken, respected, she's the one who always tried to put out the fire in mob wives. Now, a consigliere is usually some gentleman who is an underboss and is anointed by a top level official. Ange really wasn't, anointed to be that particular position as a consigliere. But when we all watched the episodes, who was the peacemaker of every fight in the series? It was Angie. Now, they brought in Victoria Gotti to handle a situation, maybe to add a little perspective on things, but also Victoria Gotti did bring ratings to Mob Wives because if you remember, there was no Gotti name associated with it. But without the Gotti regime, there really wouldn't be a Mob Wives or the other underbosses under the boss of bosses. So when you talk about from Lucky Luciano to Paul Castellano to John Gotti, Sammy the Bullet Gravano, um, and the husbands of the ladies of the mob wives, everybody has a connection. So we'll take Um, Sammy the Bull Gravano for a second. So when you talk about Sammy the Bull, he's most famous for turning over state's evidence um, on John Gotti. So when he did that, you know, Karen Gravano, his loving daughter, took a lot of graft for that stuff. It was always your father's a rat, your father this, your father that. But she stood tall and she stood and took a lot of crap from a lot of people. So, I mean, when it came to Rene Graziano being one of the main focal points who used to say that about, Sammy the Bull, and her husband was the one who turned state's evidence on Rene Graziano's father in Mob Wives, and now in turn, her husband was a rat. I mean, Renee kind of fell apart, and it was like she only lost her father, but then lost her husband. And with her son being, I guess, dealing with a lot of stuff, along with her, that was a hard pill to take. I mean, Duke, you watched the series too, and could you agree that Angie was the unofficial consigliere of the women of Mob Wives?
Yeah, she was. Absolutely. People would go to Angie, and she would be the peacemaker, so to speak. She was the one that never really had personal beef with everybody, and that she, for some reason, she was the one that everybody respected. So clearly, her counsel was important to them, and it's ironic because she wasn't just counsel to those ladies on the show. Big Ange was respected as being someone that the men respected. So that's why the women, it was a lot easier for them to respect her as well, because they knew Ange is she was a straight up person who's from the life. She understood, she knew, she's been through it all, even did time in jail and what have you. There was nothing that you would throw at Ange that she hadn't already either personally experienced or knew about, which made it easier for her to relate to everybody. So that's always been my interpretation of her.
And it's sad because, like, when you talk about, you know, people who turn state's evidence, or they, I hate to say the word rat, but turn against the mob. It's the family that deals with the repercussions because there they are, and they're lame ducks. And when you take out, mob boss, or you take out people, you become a target as revenge. So it's kind of hard when you think about these things. But in the same instance, you talk about the great love of the mafia and the lifestyles. You talk about the great love of mob wives. And every one of these women had a different scenario or dealt with different difficulties with their significant others and their fathers. And this was attributed to the lifestyle. Now, Angie, being seasoned and being well rounded in the lifestyle from many different avenues. I'm not going to get into it too much, but just take for my word, well rounded in a lot of different avenues. Um, she was more complacent in life about where she was and how she handled things. And if it wasn't for her cancer and her being sick, I think she would have had more of an impact, not just on the show, but in these young ladies' lives to help them get through what they were going through with their families. If that makes sense to you, Duke, and everybody listening out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And people like that are necessary. Again, this whole concept of the lifestyle, where you have these guys who are going out, and if they are involved, then they're doing a lot of things that you really don't talk about in public. And their families, there's a lot that they can't talk about to people in public because of that. So they got to rely on each other. And again, to have somebody who understands and you can legitimately go to them about stuff it's a big deal, especially somebody who's wise and respected and who's not going to take advantage or use that information against you to try to hurt you. That's a big deal. That's what a consigliere is supposed to be. So certainly, Anne, she fit that role to a T, and we got a glimpse of that on the Mob Wives show. We got a chance to see a little bit of that, but legitimately, this isn't just some reality TV nonsense, folks. This is really who this woman was, and that's why even at her funeral, it was a big deal. You would have thought a big elected official had passed away or something because her funeral was such a big deal. She was so respected. So many people showed up and paid serious homage to her for all that she had contributed to the lives of others, you know?
So, Duke, now that we covered that, I want to shock people, and I want to give them a scenario of somebody being a jerk off in fucking the mob lifestyle. Are you ready?
Oh boy, this is breaking news for me. So, all right, what do you got?
Now, I told my wife about this, and she knew about this about 10 years ago. I brought it up today. I said, you know what? I'm going to shock Duke today. So, everybody knows The Sopranos, and everybody knows it was a great series. It was a lifestyle. It was real. It was legit. It was probably one of the most realist TV shows you could ever come up with. And everybody knows about the bistro in Staten Island, which was my club. I fought in that club. I fucking was gonna hung out in that club. That was my club. You know what I mean? I walked in there, I was treated like king of kings. I was somebody. So when the Sopranos were going strong, and I always talked about Thursday night Gumad night, which is legit. And every time I walked in on a Thursday night, there was the wise guy table who used to be there. And I just had a newsflash, Duke. You're going to get a text in about 2 seconds. Okay, Duke. This is breaking news, folks. There is a picture of Vito Lagrasso and Lucky Luciano,
around the same age.
kind of the same age. And Duke, you're gonna get this picture now. Before I spill this, Duke, are you getting this picture?
I'm still waiting for it. Yep, it just came in.
All right, Duke. I want you to look at this picture and tell me what you see.
Wow, spitting image, literally spitting image. My goodness. Wow. When you say you look like the guy, you definitely look like the guy. There's no question about it. Wow.
That's up to you with hair.
I mean, handsome son of a bitch, and I had great hair. Look at that shit.
This guy.
Anyway, just getting back to what we were talking about, the bistro. And there was a gentleman who used to come to the bistro uninvited, but he thought he was somebody because he was in The Sopranos. And he used to tell everybody the finish of the stories as the Sopranos were going on. And he was told by the wise guys to shut the fuck up because we didn't want to hear it. We want to watch it on TV. Okay? So this guy used to come to my club and give me fucking dirty looks every time he seen me. And it got heated because I would look at him and say, fuck you, who the fuck you look at? And this is when I was in the WWE, right? And there were a couple times I was going to fucking leap from my seat and crack this motherfucker. And this is legit. And this is the same guy who used to stoolie all the fucking goods on The Sopranos because he thought he was being in with the wise guys. So, does everybody remember Vito from The Sopranos?
Absolutely.
Does everybody remember Joseph R. Gamascoli from The Sopranos?
I don't
Do
know
you
who the hell
remember
that
him,
is,
Duke?
but I remember Vito. I don't know. Is that his real name? The guy who played him?
That's his real name.
Got it.
Vito from The Sopranos. And he used to come in to the bistro and used to give me the nastiest looks. So I told my boy, he used to be one of the one of the mob guys, one of the wise guys who I was friends with. I said, look at this motherfucker coming in here and doing this. I said, I'm gonna fucking crack this guy. He said, Vito, you can't do this. He says, no, I can. He said, Vito, he says, you're in the WWE. You do this. This is not only gonna get fucking heat. I said, but you're gonna you could probably wind up in the fucking papers, and this is gonna be a major catastrophe here. And you talk about somebody who just used to give me a dirty look, and somebody used to come in and used to try to fit in. And you talk about somebody who I wanted to crack his head open. That's the guy from The Sopranos.
You got another story about somebody pulling a gun on you that I was shocked to hear. Do you want to tell that story too?
I was working in a nightclub called the Jailhouse, and it was another uh, famous wise guy, Mr. Anastasio, and I believe it was a nephew, or I'm not sure if it was a son or nephew, you know, but he came in there for shakedown money one night, and the club was owned by a couple police officers, NYPD police officers, and I was working. The guy started to tear up the club, and I went up to him and said, "You can't do that here." Him and his two buddies. So they pulled out a gun. They said, "What are you gonna fucking do about it?" And I was like, nothing. I says, okay. I went over to my boss and he says, "You're going to do anything?" He said, "Vito, I can't do nothing about it." I said, "But you watch me go over there and tell this guy to stop the shit and going to watch me fight. But you didn't want to say nothing because you were getting fucking, being shook down." And, that was the day I left that club because it was a no-win situation for me and I would have been a target because they would have came in, they would have baited me to do something. So I just went to another club. But if you were to say that I never looked for this motherfucker again, he was another one of my guys who was on my fucking hit list. Believe me.
What a life! What a life! That's all I can say to that. My God, um, scary. I'm just glad that
No,
you're still
this
here,
is
bro.
real shit going on. And you talk about, Gumad night and being in a club and being that lifestyle and, the wise guys acknowledging you, shaking your hand as you come in, going to their table out of respect. Vito, do you want to drink? You sat down out of, yes, no problem. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And people just recognizing you. And it was good to rub elbows with those people. You know what I mean? And be part of that gracious generosity they showed me. And I did come up through the ranks and I made it in a different lifestyle for myself. But if I didn't come up through that Italian lifestyle to have a set of balls to go out there and go get what I wanted, I would have never made it and I wouldn't have made it, period. So there's goes something to say about having heart, having balls. The only thing you have in your life is my word and my balls. I believe that they came from Scarface, Al Pacino.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Folks, as always, we appreciate you tuning in for the Friend of Ours podcast. I mean, we're taking you on a journey here and weaving in some things from the outside world, whether it be shows like Mob Wives and talking about Big Ange, whether it be movies, whether it be referencing back to, Vito's ancestors. The whole idea is to give you a full view of this culture, this lifestyle, and again, the story of a guy who chose to go another way, but can still look back fondly on his journey and the journey of those around him and share some insight. And hopefully, some folks out there who are at a fork in the road, hopefully, this is something that can make you go the right way as well. So certainly, we have a good time. We tell these stories. We're not glorifying criminality or anything like that. Legitimately, we're just shooting the stuff and talking about the way things have been, talking about culture and cautionary tales. No two ways about it. Anyway, Vito, what's the best way everybody listening can keep up with you?
Well, guys, we're going to start off with Twitter. That's X, the Big Vito brand. We're going to go to Facebook at the Big Vito brand. We're going to go to LinkedIn at Vito Lagrasso. Okay. We got Instagram at the Big Vito brand. And of course, I have Amazon because there's always a wish list, but that's a different story for a different day. I don't know what's going on with TikTok because we have some controversy. I hope it works out to where everybody can keep their TikTok, because here's a message just for everybody in general. A lot of people depend on TikTok, not for just business, but to express themselves as human beings and being able to be somebody, maybe not as a big public figure, but to have a presence to help their mental capacity to be somebody productive in our society. I think that's important. And I wish all the people a lot of luck who are on TikTok, who might have lost TikTok. But I want to sit here and thank you for always following us, being a part of our lives, and for myself being part of your lives and embracing you as part of the Big Vito family. That's all I got, Duke.
Duke Loves Wrestling on Facebook, on Twitter, DukeLovesWrestling at gmail.com. As always, let me know what you think. Any shout outs, any questions. You're looking for tips from the Don himself, Big Vito Lagrasso. That is what we're here for, folks. Before we go, Vito, do you have an Italian word of the week for our loyal listeners here? This is turned into a thing now. Do you have an Italian word of the week for us?
Italian word of the week, abrajo.
You got to define it.
That's for another episode here. You know, this is a kid's hour.
Let me get out of here before this guy gets us kicked off the air.
I love you. I love you.
A friend of ours, he'll stand up tall. Through gunfire smoke, he'll never fall. With heart of gold and steel resolve, a mystery we'll never solve.